This is the Ohio for Jesus podcast, where we share encouraging stories, helpful resources, and biblical truth. Brought to you by the Ohio Ministry Network of the Assemblies of God. Thanks so much for tuning in, and don't forget to hit subscribe so you're sure to get the latest episodes. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Ohio for Jesus podcast. I am so excited about today's episode. We're going to be focusing on engaging communities, which is part of our church multiplication aspect of Ohio for Jesus. Today, I have a special guest with me, Sarah Reed. So welcome to the podcast, Sarah. Could you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and what church you're a part of in the Ohio Ministry Network?
Sure. So my husband, Donovan, and I lead pastor Clearview Church. We're kind of on the west side of Cleveland. We've been here since October of 2019. So we came right before COVID hit, which is, the ideal time to take your first lead pastor position. We have two boys. They're 12 and 9, Levi and Asher. And we absolutely love what we get to do here in Ohio. And I serve at our church as a community integration pastor. Which is a little bit different, but kind of a really cool and a lot of fun role that I get to play.
Yes, I love that title. I mean, it fits right with what we're doing, Ohio for Jesus, that a role like that would be created and need to exist. So tell us, we're going to talk about foster care today, because that is one of the ways that we are able to engage our community in a really meaningful way that impacts not just now, but the future of the church. And so I would love to hear how your church has been working in foster care and how that started.
So that's a great question. So before my husband and I came to Ohio, we were in the Atlanta area, and we were children's pastors there for about a decade. And a lot of the kids in our kids ministry were adopted or had kind of been in foster care. There were quite a few that we were a part of the foster care process for their families. And so it's been something that's near and dear to our hearts. And so when we came to Ohio, we weren't going to leave that behind. And so part of community integration for our church is coming alongside of families who are already on the front lines. Mm-hmm. And so in 2020, actually, I reached out to Lorain County Children's Services, which is where we reside, and just said, hey, what do you need? Do you have children that need Easter baskets? It was kind of in spring. We didn't know with COVID what things were looking like. And the county said, sure, maybe, 25 Easter baskets. This is kind of what we need in them. And so we filled them and had extras and delivered them. And so one of the things that was so amazing about working with the county is that after that, they gave us a need and we met the need that they had. We didn't create our own need for them. And so the two ladies that I worked with at the time, one was the head of kinship care and one was the head of foster care. And both, I still work with them on a regular basis, which is so much fun. Almost 6 years later, they called me and they're like, okay, so your church did exactly what we asked and followed through, and we would love to meet with you. And so the two of them and myself ended up sitting down for 2.5 hours one day of like, this is what foster care in our county looks like. This is what families need right now. This is where things are. And I just sat and listened, and was my response to them was, we're here to meet your needs. We're not here to create needs. We're not here to create more work for you. We're not here to make ourselves feel better. What do you need? And we will meet that need to the best of our ability. And that line of what is your need is what totally just kind of broke the dam, so to speak. And so through the course of the next couple of years, the person that was my contact has somewhat shifted just because roles change. But I'm still in contact with every one of the initial people that I was able to come alongside with. And now we work with kinship and foster care, as well as independent living students, emancipated youth, the adoptive care agencies a little bit, but much more foster and kinship care, and have been able to come alongside of multiple needs annually and some that just kind of pop up.
Wow, that's so cool. I love what you said about the you didn't create a need. You asked them what need was there. I think that it's so easy for us to sit around and try to brainstorm and come up with what should we do? How do we do this? And the reality is we just need to bring the people in that have the need into that conversation and ask them what they need. It's a lot less stress for us, and it truly is meeting them and meeting the need that really is there. So that's beautiful. And I hope that that is the way that we're handling a lot of different areas, not just in this, but that can be really easy to forget. So out of that, what are some of the specific projects? You mentioned Easter baskets. You were working with kids that are coming out of, I mean, there's such a spectrum of what is needed when it comes to foster care. So can you give us a couple examples of other ways that you have met that need, that you have, and what needs you found?
So it's really fun because sometimes the needs that pop up are not things that I'm going to expect or look for or I don't know. So Lorain County does like a girl power camp every year for the girls in foster care. And then Lorain County Police do a camp for the boys in foster care every year in the summer. And so the police do the boy thing. But sometimes for the girl camp, they'll need snacks or they need water bottles. Hydration is a really big part of their camp. Sometimes the girls need towels or swimsuits or different things like that. So they'll give me just a general base of sizes and things like that. And our church just absolutely loves to go shopping or come alongside, pick out things. But we also have a warehouse on our church property. And so that's been an amazing blessing that God has provided us. So we're able to partner with 2 other warehouses, mainly in Pennsylvania, and we get food. We go and take like a 26-foot box truck, bring back 12 pallets of supplies, and we're able to undergird other churches in our area, our local schools, and a lot for Lorain County Children's Services, and even some with Cuyahoga County as well. And so the way the Easter baskets and things work is they're full of snacks and toys. A lot of those items are donated. And then a lot of our church packs them. So we spend days counting things and getting everything ready. So this year, the Easter baskets are super simple. They're pastry boxes. They're not baskets. They're like cake boxes. They're 10 by 10 by 4. And we put a really cute like Easter napkin in the bottom. So it's not full of grass to make a big mess in somebody's house. It's just very simple. And they were filled. We did 25 for Cuyahoga County, 50 for Lorain County Children's Services, 40 for our local school. They needed some, and those were actually packed in partnership with Medina Creative, which is an organization in Medina County that provides housing and jobs for adults with disabilities. So we took everything down to their day program, and our staff worked together with their day program individuals and packed those Easter baskets. And then we did 15 for independent living. And what goes in those baskets is completely dependent on what they need. So the school needed certain things, the counties needed certain things, and independent living all got like dish sets and snacks and ramen and more of those types of things. And a lot of that comes out of the warehouse. But then the county doesn't have a whole lot of storage for beds and furniture. So when they have children that are transitioning out of a crib, or they have children that are transitioning to a new place, sometimes they'll store furniture at our warehouse, or our people will find cribs or toddler beds that are in great condition. We don't store mattresses, but the frames and those things. And so we'll get a call from the county. It actually just happened last week. Like, hey, do you still have that Cars toddler bed? We have a little boy who needs it. Absolutely. And so then we deliver the bed or the desk or whatever they need in that moment. So recently too, we packed groceries for foster families, and we're starting to pack groceries for their independent living students. We set up the warehouse almost like a little bit of a store, and they're starting to bring independent living students to come shopping for what they need. So one of the students came through last week, and he needed a vacuum cleaner and a coffee table and a couple things like that, so he could take that for his first apartment. So over the years, it's continued to change. And when they throw out a need idea, we're like, hey, we're here for it. Like, we're not sure how we're going to do it, but we'll meet it to the best of our ability. And every time, God has exceeded our expectations and has just done what only he can do. And so it's really been an amazing partnership with the county and the caseworkers, because they're on the front lines. They're in the hard situations. They're dealing with the things that I don't see every day. But if I can send a bag of goldfish with you, or we pack bags for their backpacks that have a stuffed animal and a blanket, a toothbrush, and some toothpaste, and a workbook for children when they're being removed from a vulnerable situation. We do an infant version of that bag too, with diapers and wipes and same things that match what an infant would need for when they're being removed from a vulnerable situation. Oh, and wow. Those are things they've allowed us. So in the Easter baskets, in the bags, in anything we do, there is a handwritten card. There are some ladies in our church that just love to write, and they handwrite a card that says you are seen and you are loved and you are valued, and our church is praying for you. And it goes into those cards and into those bags. And they allow our church to do that, which is such a blessing. We never really asked. I was like, hey, do you mind if we put a card in? We won't make it really churchy. We want to respect your role, but we also, this is exactly what it'll say. And they've granted us that approval. And so we're even able to speak the love of Jesus directly over the children that are opening those items. And so what it is has changed constantly.
Yeah. That's incredible, though. You said it, and it just kind of was part of what you were saying. And I just want to kind of hone in on, you have gifts for kids when they're being removed from homes. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I don't think I would have ever thought of that. I mean, just like what you said before, I don't think I would have ever thought of creating something like that. But that's the moment that's probably it's all traumatic and difficult, but that's the moment that they need that the most. I
didn't think of it either. I can't even take an ounce of credit for it. I didn't think of it. The county asked, they're like, hey, there's this organization that puts these bags together and this is how much they cost. Would you be willing to do some? And so I did a bunch of research and I called that organization, and they do great work. But the only thing that was kind of a hang up is that they will send the bag to whatever county is in the most need across the country in the moment. So there was no guarantee that it was going to come to the local county that we were trying to support. And that's not a problem. It was just, they were asking for it because they needed it, right? So that kind of put a little bit of a chasm in the getting it to them. And so I was like, hey, if we took the same concept, could we make them ourselves? And they absolutely were fine with that idea. And then we had gotten bags, but then over the course of the last 3 years or so, backpacks have just continually been donated. I've never asked for them. I've never sought them out. I never called anybody. We had a local warehouse here in the Strongsville area that was like, we have a bunch of backpacks and we don't know what to do with them. Do you need them? And I was like, yes, please. And then a year later, I ran out of those bags. We weren't too far past that point of running out of those bags. And Medina Creative, who they get donations from local stores and they use what they need, but then there were things that they didn't have need for. And so they called and they're like, we've got a bunch of backpacks and shoes. Like, could you use them? And I was like, absolutely. So God has provided everything along the way in such a cool fashion. And we make sure the bags are not super full. That was one of the requests. So that if a child has a blanket or a book or something that is their absolute favorite, they have space to put their favorite things in. And then they're able to take that bag with them where they go.
Wow. That sounds like something that everyone could get involved in doing. Absolutely. And being a part, if that's what the county needs. That's really incredible. Mm-hmm. In all of that, you mentioned you found that ladies in your church have that love to write have been a part of that. What other aspects have you found that people in your church have gotten excited about, or ways that you've seen people get plugged in that weren't otherwise really passionate about doing something?
Literally everything. Everything. So from the warehouse aspect of just moving boxes, like, hey, we've got a truck coming in. We have a truck coming in next Tuesday at 5:00. And so we've got a man in the church who has a business with a forklift, and he will be here with this forklift. And we will have 20 or 30 people that will just unload that truck by hand to get it into the warehouse. There are volunteers that come up throughout the week that help organize all of those boxes, label things, get things into bins, right? Because, there's always little furry creatures that want in on the goodness too. Yes. And so there's volunteers that come in and put everything in bins and label it, to handwriting cards, to there's a group, a husband and wife team that absolutely just love to count things. They love numbers. So the whole day before we do those 130 Easter baskets or 150, whatever we're doing for that year, they come in the day before and pre-count every item, every snack, every cookie, everything, so that all the different locations where things are going are set out, and underneath are bags that have 25 toothbrushes in it and 25 toothpaste and 50 of this, and then people could just come pick up the bag and fill in the basket. And so they do all the pre-work. There are people that absolutely love to shop and do a beautiful job shopping for toys or clothing or things like that. So as we work with different organizations and we hear needs, there are people that we can share with that are going to do this or this or this. There are people who absolutely have come alongside of just praying over the baskets and over the bags before they go. There are people that have grandchildren in our church who are foster children or were foster children. They're super passionate about the bags. And so they love to be the people to fill the bags, and they pray over those bags while they fill them. We were invited by the county, which this is kind of really cool. Maybe not quite what you were asking, but kind of just a really cool story. We were invited by the county for the last 3 years to be a part of a walk-through Christmas experience that they do for all the children in kinship and foster care. And so we give out hot chocolate tubes and cookies. And I asked them, I was like, so the schools require cookies now to be store-bought. Like, do we have to buy them? Or I've got a lot of ladies that would love to bake some cookies. And they were like, no, bake them. Like, bake them with love. Like, bring homemade cookies. And so we always have hundreds of cookies more than we can give out at that event. But then I prayed really hard before we went the first time. And I was like, God, who do I take to this? Because the anonymity matters, and there's some sensitivity to it. And so I prayed, and the Lord led me to 2 women in our church, and I invited them, and we were on our way for the first time. And I didn't really know what we were totally getting invited to, because it's really our church and all of the caseworkers. There's not other... It's not something that's open for a lot of people to be a part of. And so I didn't really know what I was expecting. And we got there, we got set up, and both women looked at me and they're like, thank you so much for asking me. I grew up in foster care. And I didn't realize that they both had grown up in the foster care system. And so their passion for coming alongside of and purchasing things. And then it's been really cool too to see people pull in other people. So some of the needs from feminine hygiene to furniture to things like that, and people have connected to people, and so like, oh hey, I have this that so and so was shopping for, and they're a great shopper, so they brought this in for the warehouse. Can you use it? Absolutely. My friend is moving and she has beautiful lamps, and she didn't really know where to take them, so I brought them. And so it's really amazing to see people just grab a heart for the passion and grab a hold of the vision and the perspective and the need and the ministry. And so it's not all on me. This thing does not live and breathe on me at all. And so the church has owned it and come alongside of it, and it goes across the board, which is really amazing.
Yeah. No, that is amazing. When the vision is caught so fully that it doesn't rest on a leader, you know that the ripples will impact eternity. Yeah. That's just amazing. Now, I don't know the answer. Obviously, that's what I'm asking. But so if this isn't your goal, just tell me that. But have you had the opportunity to have any interactions that you know what kind of impact it's having? Or is this seed planting is your entire goal?
A lot of it is seed planting, just because the stories don't always kick back too much. However, I can tell you 2 stories that we've recently heard. So it's one of those things I would encourage anybody, if your church does have a heart or a passion, or you're coming alongside, and not just foster care, I know is what we're talking about today, but in your community, whether it's with the school or whether it's with a neighborhood or whatever, don't despise small beginnings, because you don't always hear back the effect of things. And so we're almost 6 years in on this just how can we help you project, if I can word it that way, but that's really kind of how it started. And it was just about a month ago that the church received a card from a mom, and she just said, she's like, I am a foster mom here in Lorain County, and we had the privilege of caring for a 5-year-old little boy, and when he came into our home, the only thing he had was the backpack. And so the next day we went through the backpack that was full of, she said, all of these sweet things. And he was so excited. His absolute favorite item was the red toothbrush because it was red. And she said, she's like, and then we sat and read the card from your church that spoke over how he is seen when he feels unseen, and how he is cared for when he feels kind of left behind. And she went through this moment in this note, and she said, I'm just so thankful. And so that blessed our whole church. And my husband read it in front of the church because he's like, this is something you've all invested in whether you've prayed or picked up toothbrushes or got toothpaste or bought diapers or have packed Easter baskets or packed school bags or whatever you've done, you've invested into this. And so we did hear that story back, which was really cool. And then last week, like I said, about the Cars toddler bed, I happened to be at a lunch with one of the caseworkers on Thursday, and she commented, she's like, I just wanted you to know I just dropped that bed off this morning. And the little boy was so excited for it. And so that was a really exciting moment, because the woman whose children had used that bed, her foster grandchildren had used it, was with me when she heard that feedback. So it wasn't even, it made my heart skip a beat, but I know that it blessed her heart abundantly to be able to hear that. And so those would probably be the two that I have. Like I said, we don't get a whole lot of like specific feedback, but I can also say the county is abundantly appreciative, and they are not, they have been really great at expressing that, whether just to me, or we've had some of the caseworkers come and just like, hey, would you like to share anything with our church? And they have appreciated the church to the church, which also helps, right? It helps people hear it from someone else. And it's been a big blessing.
That's amazing. And I think that, like, don't despise small beginnings, but also being American culture, we tend to like numbers and like quantifiable and trackable things. And that's good, because sometimes those numbers and quantifiables can help us know what we're doing. Are we actually doing what we think we're doing? Yeah, absolutely. But there are also areas where we just have to trust that what we're doing is biblical, and it is what we've been called to do. And this is straight out of the Bible. I mean, caring for widows and orphans. There's so many different scriptures you can pull for that. But it doesn't mean that we're always going to get the reward or even the feedback this side of heaven. And so I appreciate what you're doing. So thank you for setting that example and continuing to share that with people, so that people can be reminded of the fruit that lies in that, even if you don't see it right away. So I'd love to hear a little bit about what you would encourage others. So churches that are listening, pastors that are listening, individuals that are listening today, what would you encourage them steps to take to engage their community or engage in foster care specifically?
So in engaging your community, one, don't despise small beginnings. Like that's definitely, because honestly, a lot of people have a lot of feelings about church. Right, wrong, or indifferent, they do. And communities have a lot of feelings about church. Same thing. And so sometimes the church kind of has an uphill battle to prove that you're there for the right reasons. And I'm not picking on you. It's kind of just the reality of the culture we live in. And so I would say don't despise small beginnings, and whatever you say you're going to do, you got to do it. So whatever commitment you make on behalf of your church, whatever you're able to be a part of. And the other thing is, you don't always have to be in the limelight. And I think that's one of my favorite aspects are on a community level. The community that we're in does a lot of festivals. Like they had like a huge Easter egg hunt yesterday. And so we didn't do an Easter egg hunt. We reached out to the people who were running it, and we're like, how can we undergird you? How can we partner with you? So instead of our church trying to not compete, but not create something just because we wanted it on our property, we went up to the local park yesterday, and we have like the axe throwing thing from Costco and a bunch of candy from the warehouse and invites to church. And we were just there to interact with people and be a part of what the community was doing. And so I would say literally take community integration to the heart of your church, right? If your church is there for the community, then I can't expect as a church that I'm only going to be for the community when the community is on my property. And so I need to go and be in the community and find, sit down with school superintendents, sit down with school principals. What are the needs in the school? Do your teachers' lounges need refreshed once a month? Do you guys need coffee on a regular basis? Do the teachers need donuts on Thursdays? Is there a Christian club meeting that I can just come and provide the donuts for? Is there something, do your girls' basketball team, do they need towels? Because we'll go buy them towels. Find out what the need is, whatever it looks like, and step into that need. It's not about me, it's about meeting your need. Because once somebody realizes how much you care, then they truly see how much you care, and then your words matter more. So I would just say, don't despise small beginnings. Figure out how you can be a part of the community and support the community. And whatever you say you're going to do, you got to do it.
That's so good, because I think that that's a shift, a mindset shift for a lot of us, because in some of my, been working on a doctoral program, and in some of that research, we talked about the differences of the church throughout the decades, and that this is the longest time frame that the church has stayed in a model, the seeker-sensitive model, the come and see model, and is it time for a shift to what you just described, which is more missional, of being, we're going to be in the community, not ask the community to come to us. We're going to support what's already happening and just be a light in that circumstance, rather than saying we're going to create this and try to generate momentum. We're going to join the momentum that's happening. So people actually see us as a value add, not as a pull and a drain. And I think that's also a little bit off topic, but that's also, it can be a drain to the people who want to serve the community, that are in a part of your church, but they also want to be a part of your church. And they feel this tension between the two things. If you're just unifying that in the way that you did yesterday and the way that you're doing in other ways, it helps them be able to be a part of it. And you're not hurting for volunteers for things because you're doing it together.
Yep. That's what's so cool about, like, there's multiple, like I said, kind of community events on that line. And then we partner with the local high school. And so our church, for 20 plus years, I think we're right at like 21 years on, we've hosted a fifth quarter, right? Just after the football games.
Yeah.
And the school, we never asked them to, the school announces that all of the high school students are invited to the church after the football game on Friday mornings of the football game. And it's announced at the event, at the football game, like at halftime. And we'll go to the game, and parents will come up and talk to us. And we even have students who are, they're in their 30s now. And they're like, oh, I grew up going to fifth quarter. Like, I'm so glad the church did that. We've only been here for 6 years, but there was a legacy that was set by the founding pastor, and he did a phenomenal job. And he and his wife still come. Like, they're still a part of it. They're at every fifth quarter. They're at every sporting event for the school, and pass the baton beautifully and very healthy. But that culture is created. So what's really cool from a people standpoint is you have extrovert people who absolutely love the people things, and they're going to jump on it. You have night people who love hanging out until 11:30 on a Friday night with a bunch of teenagers. You have morning people who want to be a part of these things, and then you have introverted people who can write cards and who can do some of the quiet things. And so I think one of the things as pastors is I have to remember that we're here to cast vision, and the vision is not because I want to do it. I'm not looking. Following Jesus is not just following needs. So if I'm following Jesus, he's going to lead me to exactly the footprint, if you will, that our church is supposed to make in the community. And so because of that, he's given us a vision and a drive. And so we cast that over the church and then offer up countless opportunities for people to serve those opportunities and those needs within their skill set. And no one is better or bigger than the other. And so because of that, it really hasn't burned people out, because they can be a part of which part they want to. Mm-hmm. And it's not the same 40 people doing the same thing over and over again. One of my favorite things last year, we were at a community event in the summer. They do like a home days, big like carnival festival thing. And so we have this super sweet, amazing older man who's a snowbird, right? So he's in Florida right now. He's working his way back, and he's like, I want to be there. I'm like, really? Like, you want to and come do this? And he's like, yeah, I'm going to be there. And so he volunteered, and he did like a 2-hour slot. And I was so ill prepared for how much this man was going to talk to people, because he's really quiet at church. And he got out in the community. He was so proud of his church that he invited every kid to play Plinko. He invited every kid to be at church. He talked to every parent, every grandparent. And he shared his heart for his church. And I didn't know how passionate he was until the opportunity was there for him to take it.
Wow. That's awesome.
And so learning that art of not hand selecting who should or shouldn't be a part of things, and allowing God to just call people into those moments, left it go before, beyond me. Mm-hmm. And so that was a really cool moment, was to just hear how proud he was of his home church.
That's beautiful. So back to the foster care aspect of that.
Yes, sorry about that.
No. I took us off rail. I love that. I think that was so beneficial, and I hope that people were really, really taking that in, of the I think that's such a valuable and needed thing right now, is for the shift in our churches to happen. It's happening in culture, but we have to, we're always the last. The church always shifts last.
It is.
And we really need to move a little faster. Yeah. And, so that we're not missing those people in the time that it takes us to shift. There are people.
Absolutely.
Those are lives that are not being touched and not being reached with the gospel when we're slow to shift. So thank you for doing that and for sharing that. I think the more that people hear that, the more that we are seeing those examples. You have early adopters, middle adopters, late adopters, and the more we see each other doing that, the more we understand how to, and we get ideas. We don't have to reinvent the wheel and figure it out ourselves when we start watching one another and just using that blueprint and seeing how the Lord wants us to walk that out in our context.
Absolutely.
So I think that was a beautiful direction to go.
I just didn't want to go off topic too terribly far.
No, I think that was good. And but I do want to make sure that those who are tuning in because of foster care specifically, I would love, you shared a little bit at the beginning, but what advice or encouragement do you have for them about how they can just jump into that area and how to find their place in that world of ministering to children?
So on a foster care level, like, my personal dreams are so much bigger than what we've gotten to put our hands to. But at the same time, what we've been able to partner with and do over the last 6 years, none of it was planned by me. So I've kind of learned that place of, like, my heart is to be an undergird for foster families and foster parents, and the caseworkers, just as much for them as for the families. And so the biggest encouragement that I would give is start praying, like, pray for opportunities. And then, like I said, don't despise small beginnings, and then be willing to take a step of faith. Some things go perfectly, right? We've had quite a few conversations with the county with, like I said, the Easter baskets or the bags or different things like that. And then I've had conversations where there were some things that they wanted to try and do, and we were happy to host them, and they just flopped because, people weren't ready for it. It was kind of coming out of COVID, and people weren't ready to engage in some things. And so we weren't discouraged by that or frustrated or say, well, if you can't do it, we're not going to do it, right? That kind of thing. We just stayed the course, and continually just, hey, what do you need? Oh, I remember, I absolutely, like, this would be in June, and we had a conversation in September. I remember you asking me for this. I have it. Do you still want it? Do you still need it? And so I make notes constantly in conversations. And so just being consistent, being a consistent support, a consistent prayer warrior, consistently valuing what their day could look like, whether it was perfect or they're meeting me after they just went through the worst court moment that they've dealt with in months. And they're not going to tell me that because they're professional people. And so they're not necessarily going to be that vulnerable. But I know that how I carry myself can either be the easiest part of their day or just another addition to the difficulty. Mm-hmm. And so that is part of where I've come into that place. And then, like I said, just being consistent, meeting the need and listening for it. Our county is building kind of a resource center. So it's actually a visitation center. And so that families, parents can visit with their kids in a more interactive fashion. And so they brought this up to me like 18 months ago, and they're like, hey, we'd really love to have a play set for it. I'm like, cool. Like, we've got guys that'll put it together or whatever. And so it's been 18 months and I haven't heard anything. And I was with them on Thursday and I was like, hey, then they brought up the visitation center. I was like, great, you mentioned a play set. Do you still want that? And they're like, oh yeah, maybe, like, we're not sure, because they're not done with the construction. Like, that's good. But I just want you to know that's perfect. But I just wanted you to know that if I've already talked to some of the men in our church. So if you decide you want that, they're ready to put it together. So it just affirms for them that we're already prepared for the partnership. And if it doesn't happen, our feelings aren't hurt. And I think that was probably one of the best things, is that if they change their mind or they want to do something different or they go a different route, I'm not taking it personal. I'm here to partner with you for the benefit of the children and that God gets the glory. I'm not here to partner with them so that I look really good. And therefore, I don't take things personal. And so things can ebb and flow and change and shift all the time. And that's okay.
I love that. Two things I want to hone in that you said. One is the ministry isn't just to the foster children. In fact, your one-on-one and in-person ministry, your direct ministry impact is to those social workers and to
Absolutely.
those the caseworkers, the people that are working with those children directly. Because, I mean, imagine if all of them are feeling the love of Christ and they they come to know the Lord, the impact they then have on the children that they have in their care and that they are working with, and the families and the parents that they're working with. That would transform the foster care system in itself. So that work is just as important, if not more, than just as important as what you're doing across the board. So just focusing on that don't get frustrated if you don't hear the stories from what you're doing and how it impacts the children. You're likely not going to hear that doesn't change that it makes a difference. Focus on how you're interacting with the workers that you talk to daily, because you can be the best or worst part of their day. And you want to be the part that's shining the love of Christ. That's so good. And then the other thing, I think that churches fall, we're really bad, churches, pastors. We want to see that what we're doing is great, that it's successful, that we're doing it well. And so it can be frustrating and easy to break ties if it doesn't go well and you're just like, well, that's not our thing. Well, maybe it's something you need to work on, refine, figure out why that didn't work, do some work there, or that partner is not working with me in the way I want them to work with me.
Yep.
And we're once again making it about us versus we came to serve them, and that turned out not to be the best way to serve them. So what is? And just that's your mentality and your attitude. That's very commendable, and I think that's a mental shift as well. That is a little bit against what we're trained or what we're accustomed to, and so I think those two things were really powerful.
Oh, can I add one thing?
Yes,
to that?
please.
Sorry,
yes.
But just you reminded me of this, and just kind of in that note, like as a church, we obviously and of course want to make Jesus known. That is the most, the biggest thing that we want to do. But when you're working with the public school and you're working with the county, you're working with government organizations, right? There's just regardless, there's red tape. And so one of the biggest things that has definitely helped is learning kind of where I was sharing with the cards of, hey, we're a church and we're here for you. Could we put a card in here? We're not going to make it like super Jesus-y, right? Like that's not a word, but abundantly religious, but is that okay? And so following their protocol gives them more comfortability because then they don't have to undo something later. And so if we put in, a whole bunch of tracts and a bunch of abundantly religious things into the school system, we would have gotten shut down long already, because then they have to open up for any other religion that wants to express anything in anything they donate. But by kind of following suit, we're still sharing the gospel, we're still sharing Jesus, but we're able to do some things without causing them a problem. And so kind of, I know that sounds like towing a line, a little bit, but it's realizing that the people I'm ministering to the most are not setting foot in my church. And so I'm going to honor their guidelines and follow their protocol, along with holding my own integrity and the own conviction of what we're called to do, and find common ground in that so that Jesus is known. But I don't want to meet up with a brick wall, and that makes what we're trying to do harder. So being able to maybe sometimes humble myself a little bit from the track or the abundantly churchy looking things, because I'd rather Jesus go further than have us hit a brick wall. Does that make sense?
No, it does. That's really good. That it can be really easy to, once again, it's our agenda. What is our agenda in it? What is our purpose? What is our focus? And the agenda has to be meeting them where they are, not I want to have the opportunity to say what I think needs to be said here. Because if you have that relationship, they're going to see the love of Christ through you. And you are Christ's ambassador, and that's not going to be voided or missed simply because you're not able to say the words exactly the way you want to, because the Lord knows that, and the Lord can still work through you and open those doors of people asking you questions that they might not otherwise ask if it wasn't for how you were walking in integrity, and the fact that you're willing to partner with them in a way that they're able to partner with you. Yeah. Yes. No, that's really good. I appreciate that. Is there anything else you would like to say to our listeners regarding any of what we've talked about?
Edit that part out. Just keep going. You know, try one thing and let God leave your heart, right? You're a follower of Jesus, and find the vision and the mission for your church. Be confident in the vision and the mission for your church that the Lord gives your leader, and then cast that vision across your church and empower people. Empower people to take the gospel into their community and into where they live. One of my favorite things is from the warehouse, we're able to, like yesterday, we put hundreds of goldfish and cookies and different things out for people to take. And so some of the kids, you know, of course, like kids had massive bags of every Pepperidge Farm cookie you can fathom. And mom's like, what are we going to do with it? And so I grabbed Easter cards and I was like, all right, here's our challenge. You're going to take 10 of these and you're going to tape them on the goldfish that you have. And then mom's going to walk with you this afternoon. You're going to drop them on people's doorsteps. And so then all of a sudden kids are like, oh, I can totally do that. I can take it to school. I have 3 teachers I really want to invite. And so I just encourage you, kind of what we already said, like, don't despise small beginnings, cast vision that other people in your church can grab a hold of, pick up the rope and pull. It is not something that should live and die on me as a pastor, on my husband as a pastor. That is a self-righteous place where we will fail. But ministry is something that as a church we get to do together, and we find roles for people to be a part of because we want everybody to put their hands on the plow. And when everybody puts their hands on the plow goes that much further. And so I just encourage you, keep going, keep making strides. Some strides are slow, some strides are fast, but keep making strides.
That's incredible. Well, thank you so much for taking time to share with us about what you're doing and how the Lord's leading you in this ministry as you're engaging your community and truly making a difference in reaching Ohio for Jesus. I'm thankful to get to talk to you. I'm glad you're part of the Ohio Ministry Network, and I hope that people are encouraged. If you would like to connect with Sarah, you can email her. Her email, I will drop it in the show notes so that you can connect with her, but I believe it's sruthreed@gmail.com. Yep. So check that out in the show notes. You can also connect with Father's Heart, our ministry. Parisiano is the director of that, to learn all things about foster care. But if you have any questions about anything Sarah's talked about, she'd love to connect with you. We'd love to continue to resource you here at the network office. And I hope that you will connect with us and be a part of the next Ohio for Jesus episode. Thanks so much for listening today. I hope you enjoyed this conversation and will tune in again next time. Know that we as a network are praying for you, and if you would like more information on how you and your team can get more involved with the Ohio Ministry Network and Ohio for Jesus, visit ohioministry.net.